The Sound of Doubt podcast is also available to listen to on iTunes, Spotify, and Audible. So if you want to listen to your podcast, you can go check it out there. If not, what's up, guys? What does it actually mean to be MAGA? This is a debate I've been seeing on the right a lot recently, and quite frankly, I think a lot of people get it twisted. Even more sinisterly, I think there's a lot of people who knowingly co-opt slogans like MAGA or America First for more political popularity, whether that's for more votes, or more followers, or more clout in general, without actually believing in the core tenets of the original MAGA movement. But they know that's where conservatism is, they know that's where conservatives' hearts are, and so they'll simply just use them for their own personal gain. So let's be absolutely clear as to what it actually means to be MAGA, okay? By first defining clearly what MAGA is not, okay? So let's be clear about this. MAGA is not, I repeat, MAGA is not a more diverse, more woke version of tired old establishment GOP ideals, okay? It is not simply a younger, more energetic version of the old GOP establishment. And I think you see this a lot in the current Republican Party and in the current conservative movement. You'll have these new, fresh faces come along, and they're more energetic and they're more charismatic than the old GOP establishment, but fundamentally at their core, you ask them what they actually believe, they hold the exact same principles as people like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. So look out for these people. That is not what MAGA is. And again, MAGA is not simply just a diverse, woke version of conservatism. That's not what it is. MAGA is, you do not magically create MAGA by adding, I don't know, more black people or more LGBT people, and you're like, hey, look, if back when it was just all white people, that was old conservatism, but now it's MAGA because we're woke folks and we have diversity. No. While we welcome all people into the MAGA movement, that is not what MAGA is, okay? Nor will conservatives ever actually be effective at outwoking the left because the left rules wokeness. And so I think that's actually a very misjudged political strategy that a lot of people try, and it's just not going to work for the Republican Party. But now that with that out of the way, let's actually be clear about what it means to be MAGA. And to understand MAGA, all you have to do is really go back and look at the core tenets of Trump's original 2016 campaign that spurred the MAGA movement and the MAGA sentiment. And what was that? What was that all about? Well, it's pretty simple. MAGA was and always will be a populist, working and middle class movement that seeks to take the side, okay, that takes the side of American workers and American families over the interests of the political establishment, of big business, of the globalist elites who seem to control so much in our system, of foreign nations, and over all of the entities that benefit from what Trump referred to at many times throughout the original 2016 campaign as a rigged political system. And that is what MAGA is. And let's keep in mind, that is not the old GOP, okay? That is not something that Mitt Romney would have used to say. That's not something that John McCain used to say. John McCain didn't get up there and exactly say that Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. It's certainly not something that the Bushes used to say, but it's not even something that Reagan used to say, okay? And I think that's something a lot of conservatives sort of get confused. Like, they think Trumpism and Reaganism are similar or the same when they're actually kind of fundamentally diametrically opposed, okay? But it is not the old GOP establishment. I think most people sort of understand that sentiment, but a lot of times they don't really understand why. And so to understand why, ask yourself again, what are the core tenets of Trump's 2016 campaign? Not just the shallow stuff like, oh, we're more patriotic, we care about America more, but actually ask yourself the actual ideas here, okay? What is actually going on here? Why do you think Trump is more hawkish on things like free trade and immigration than the old GOP establishment? Again, because Trump is a populist trying to look out for American workers and American families over the interests of the political establishment. Why do you think Trump is so isolationist on foreign policy and has often shown this sentiment of wanting to get America out of its foreign wars and make America self-sufficient on the issue of trade? And it's because that, again, Trump has a more nationalistic view of America than the old GOP establishment, right? And just the political establishment in general. He is against this sort of globalist view of eventually forming a de facto one world government. Trump is a nationalist, okay? And like, I know that's a word that a lot of people don't like to say, and it's kind of a controversial word, but when you really define it, he is, because he wants to preserve the idea of the American nation and the independent American nation, which is unlike, this sort of interconnected free trade global network that, a lot of the political establishment seems to want it to be. But I think most people kind of get that, right? Where I think people are most confused is on this aspect of it, which is this. MAGA and the Tea Party are not the same thing. Okay, they are not the same thing. I think that's where a lot of people get confused. I think I noticed that there's a lot of Tea Party people who co-opt the MAGA slogan, but are more Tea Party people than they are MAGA people. So keep in mind what I define MAGA to be, and ask yourself, think back to the Tea Party. Is that something the Tea Party used to say or would say? And the answer is no. And don't get me wrong, the Tea Party people, I think Tea Party people and MAGA people form a very effective coalition against the old guard of the Republican Party. We work together. I think we make a good team, but fundamentally, we are not the same, okay? We believe different things. Whereas the 2016 Trump and MAGA is sort of this working class populism. Let's take the government and let's use the government to take back our system and restore, order in our society. The Tea Party movement is more of just this libertarian individualist movement of like, okay, let's, cut taxes, shrink the size of government, get government out of my life. It's all about like freedom and liberty. And that's not to say that MAGA people don't believe in freedom and liberty, because of course we do, right? There is a lot of overlap, but fundamentally, there is sort of this difference, right? That I think Trump was a lot more in favor of sort of using the government to achieve our ends and to help people in our ways, in like right-wing ways, more than the Tea Party was. And the Tea Party was more just about shrinking the government in general, okay? But this is where I want to really draw the distinction, is that you have people like Rand Paul, Mike Lee, and I know Ted Cruz has been changing a little bit recently, but even Ted Cruz, these are not MAGA people, okay? And don't get me wrong, these are people that I like. These are people that, with the exception of Mike Lee, because I'm really not a fan of him, but the other two are people that I would support in a general election. But don't get it twisted, these are not MAGA people. These are Tea Party people, okay? And like I said, we form a good team. We work together pretty well. The problem I have is not so much with, I'm not saying necessarily they're doing this, but the problem I have is when Tea Party people sort of come over to our side, and try to work with us, but then try to redefine what it means to be MAGA, redefine what it means to be America First. And I hear a lot of people, like, just these people just don't get it right. Like they seem to think, the reason Trump won in 2016 is because the American people just wanted the government out of their lives. And the reason Trump won in 2016 is because, people wanted a smaller government and they wanted more freedom and liberty. And it's like that is really not what 2016 was about at all. Maybe the election of 1980 and 1984 when Reagan got elected, but that is not what Trump or Trumpism is fundamentally about. I'm not saying we don't believe in freedom and liberty, not saying that we also don't want to make the government smaller, but that is not our rhetorical or our political focus at the moment, okay? Our focus is more about restoring society and restoring the American nation, and, in turn, you create a healthy society, you create a healthy American nation, you don't need as big of a government. Whereas I think the Tea Party's goal is more of get in government, shrink the size of government, and you're done. Call it quits, right? And I think that is where they diverge, right? So again, people like Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, these are Tea Party people. If you're looking for actual MAGA politicians, right, those look more like people like, by the way, even Kristi Noem. I know a lot of MAGA people like Kristi Noem, but again, I don't know too much about Kristi Noem's policy, but from what I've seen from her, she seems to also be more of a Tea Party person than a MAGA person, right? But MAGA politicians look like people like Ron DeSantis, Josh Hawley, okay, Paul Gosar, obviously Donald Trump. Those are your MAGA people, okay? Those are your MAGA type of politicians. Now, the reason I think it's so important to define what MAGA actually means is because, like I said, I see a lot of people within conservatism, within the right in general, trying to redefine what it means to be MAGA. And to be fair, I think that, people like Jared Kushner, for instance, had a lot of negative influence on Trump as president, sort of driving Trump away from the original meaning of MAGA and the original MAGA message. Okay, and that is something why you've seen why in recent days I've been trying to reiterate what it means to be MAGA. And if you yourself want to sort of figure out like what does this slogan really mean, you can go back and look at Trump's 2016 campaign. I think the best place where you'll find it is Trump's 2016 RNC acceptance speech. Like that is the place where like he truly outlines what it means to be MAGA. Right? And even more specifically, probably that one famous line where he utters that Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. That is MAGA. Okay? And back then, I think MAGA was a lot more clearly defined because it was like there was a lot of never Trumpers and a lot of anti-MAGA people, and so you knew which team people were on. The problem now within conservatism and within the Republican Party is that because the original sentiment of Trumpism and of MAGA is so popular, and for all my never Trumpers or people who say, well, MAGA's too divisive, MAGA's too toxic, whatever it is, okay, but you can see that everyone is trying to now brand themselves as MAGA. Even now that Trump is gone, people are just doubling down on branding themselves as MAGA because that's where conservatism is, okay? So MAGA does win. MAGA is effective. I actually think in 2020, one of Trump's biggest downfalls was that he, in many ways, abandoned his old 2016 messaging, 2016 style, 2016 approach, right? And I think that was largely at the hands of people like Jared Kushner, getting into his head and, the lack of Steve Bannon planning out his political campaign. But now that you have MAGA being so popular, you need to look out for people who try to brand themselves as MAGA, but don't actually believe it or have some contorted, twisted view of what it actually means to be MAGA, right? Because there is absolutely no point in electing people, in getting behind people that will brand themselves as MAGA. Sometimes maybe they'll even have a Trump endorsement. But once these people get into office, they will betray American workers and American families for the interests of the political establishment, of foreign nations, all that stuff, you name it, because they are fake MAGA. And I think that the debate over what it truly means to be MAGA is especially important as, you kind of see Trump sort of, first of all, it's very important as Trump sort of tries to, and Kevin McCarthy work together to try to strategize like a plan to take back the House and to take back the Senate, obviously, in 2022. But most importantly for Trump himself, I think the reason the debate is so important is because, let's face it, I'm going to be completely honest, guys. 2020 Trump was a shell of 2016 Trump, okay? It's good, great at times, right? Definitely still one of the better political campaigns in recent history, but it was a shell of what 2016 Trump was. And here's what I think. And I think 2020 Trump abandoned a lot of the tenets that caused 2016 Trump to win. And like I said, if you're looking for what I'm talking about, you can go back and watch Trump's 2016 acceptance speech for the RNC versus Trump's 2020 RNC speech, and you can kind of tell the big difference between the two candidates, okay? But the reason I say this is because if Trump wants to run again in 2024 and if Trump wants to win in 2024, the only way Trump wins in 2024 is by channeling the original MAGA, is by channeling 2016 Trump, okay? This watered down, washed up, like woke version of MAGA that Jared Kushner and a lot of other people have tried to steer it into being and basically set it up to be in the 2020 campaign. That MAGA, that form of Trump, will not win in 2024. Like, I'm just saying that right now. If Trump runs again, the only type of Trump that will win is 2016 Trump. 2020 Trump will not run again, will not win again. When you especially consider all that will be stacked up against Trump, and a lot of those things I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, but when you consider everything that will be stacked up against Trump, if he decides to run again, it is my firm belief that the only Trump that can win is the original 2016 populist Trump. And that's it, okay? That's it. This Jared Kushner Trump will not win, okay? And as people talk about being a big tent and all of this stuff, it's like a big tent doesn't mean making the party or whatever. A big tent does not mean we betray what we originally were trying to stand for here. Okay. And I see that a lot with just these libertarians who try to come into our movement, and basically co-opt it and try to redefine what it means, And it's like, okay, if you want to be a libertarian, cool, go ahead. But the second you start redefining our movement, and the second these woke, basically liberal Republicans, quote unquote, do an even worse job of just redefining our movement, just trying to make it into this woke coalition, okay? Oh, Trump did criminal justice reform. Look at how woke we are, guys. Oh my gosh. He waved an LGBT flag at events, guys. Look how woke we are. That GOP. The second we start falling into that, we lose. It doesn't work, and it is fundamentally a betrayal of what MAGA means, okay? And keep that in mind, folks. I want everyone to strongly keep that in mind. Because as we go into first of all, I think there is sort of the civil war, within sort of internet conservative influencers on the right, and I'm picking my clear side on this, so you can clearly see who I side with in this. Okay, I side with the original MAGA, the original populist, not this new nonsense, big tent, quote unquote, woke coalition of whatever the hell they're trying to make the movement into. But more importantly than internet drama, going into 2022. As you select candidates in those ever so important primaries, keep that in mind. And keep in mind that not everyone who calls themselves MAGA or calls themselves America First or is even endorsed by Trump, people like Mike Crapo, even people who are endorsed by Trump does not mean that they are MAGA. So keep an eye out because this is going to be really important, folks. Okay? And with that being said, that'll be the end of this podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you can kind of internalize, some of the things I said, because I think this is probably like one of my more important podcasts. And until next time, remember, folks, alpha moves only. I'll see you guys next time, and peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to click some of the stuff on my left for some more awesome content. Also, to follow me on social media, check out my podcast, and some more awesome stuff, be sure to check out the links down in my description. All right? Peace.